Jung said something near the end of his life that most people pass over too quickly. He said that the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming who you actually are, is the central task of human existence. Not happiness. Not success. Not even love. Becoming whole. And then he said something harder. He said almost no one finishes it. Not because it's impossible, but because it asks something of you that very few people are willing to give. Individuation is Jung's word for the process by which a person becomes undivided. Not perfect, undivided. It means withdrawing the projections you've cast onto the world, confronting the parts of yourself you've hidden in shadow, and integrating them into a conscious, honest whole. It sounds simple. It is not. The first obstacle is the persona. The mask. The version of yourself you constructed to survive childhood, to fit the culture, to be acceptable. Most people spend decades building this mask and then mistake it for their face. Individuation begins the moment you realize that who you've been performing is not who you are. This is not a comfortable realization. It arrives, usually, in the form of crisis. The career that should feel meaningful doesn't. The relationship that looks right from the outside feels hollow within. Something cracks. Jung called this the night sea journey, the descent into the dark waters of the unconscious, where everything you avoided is waiting. Most people, when they feel this crack, do everything they can to seal it back up. They get busier. They medicate. They find a new relationship or a new city or a new identity to perform. Anything to avoid the descent. This is the first place where individuation fails. Not because the psyche stops calling, but because the ego refuses to listen. The second obstacle is the shadow. The shadow is everything about yourself that you've deemed unacceptable and pushed out of awareness. Your rage. Your selfishness. Your envy. Your hunger for power. The parts that don't match the persona. Jung was blunt about this. He said you cannot become whole while pretending half of yourself doesn't exist. The shadow must be met. Not defeated, met. Acknowledged. Understood. Brought into the light, not to be celebrated, but to be owned. This is where most therapeutic work begins and, unfortunately, where most of it ends. People will acknowledge their shadow intellectually. They'll talk about it in therapy. They'll read about it in books. But living with it, making daily choices from a place that includes the full truth of who you are, that is a different matter entirely. The shadow is not just personal. It's collective. Every culture, every family, every institution has a shadow. And when you begin to withdraw your projections and see these shadows clearly, you become, in a sense, an outsider. You see what others can't. Or what others won't. This is lonely work. The people around you may not understand what you're doing. They may feel threatened by it. When you stop playing the role they assigned you, it disrupts the system. Families resist it. Partnerships buckle under it. Friendships built entirely on shared persona start to feel thin and performative. And loneliness is the third reason individuation stalls. Jung understood that the individuating person walks a narrow path between two dangers. On one side, identification with the collective, staying safe, staying normal, staying asleep. On the other side, inflation, mistaking personal insight for divine authority, believing you are above the group rather than simply apart from it. The ego wants to be special. The self does not care about special. The self wants wholeness. And wholeness includes the ordinary, the broken, the embarrassing, the failed. This is perhaps the hardest thing about individuation. It does not lead to the person you wish you were. It leads to the person you actually are. And that person is more complicated, more contradictory, and more human than any version you could have designed. So why does almost no one complete it? Because it never stops asking. It asks you to keep seeing. To keep feeling. To keep integrating what's uncomfortable. To hold the tension of opposites without collapsing into one side. To sit with uncertainty instead of reaching for answers that would make you feel safe. Jung himself said he was still individuating at the end of his life. It was not a task he claimed to have finished. It was a direction, not a destination. Most people turn back at this point. Not because they are weak, but because the culture offers no support for this kind of work. There is no ceremony for it. No community that gathers around it. The individuating person must find their own way, often in silence, often in the dark. And maybe that is the final teaching. That the point was never to arrive. The point was to keep walking. To keep descending. To keep becoming. The people who complete individuation are not the ones who reach some imagined end. They are the ones who never stop beginning. The cave you most fear to enter holds the treasure you most need to find.